Today on This Works Marketing Experts Interview Series, I'm with Steve Eady, Chief Marketing Officer for the iconic hair clipper and beard trimmer company, Wahl.
I dabbled in DR for years, really as an avenue for sales. And what happened was I understood, really through Amazon, that the direct relationships was key. And it kind of dawned upon me, that's really what DR is all about. And you go back in time and, you think DR, you think,
Ron Popeil,
yeah,
Pack a Fisherman. Right?
Yeah, kind of that's one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is you had this direct relationship you could have potential to build and then build that relationship. Some people have been successful at that and have had relationship as a relationship for years.
Right.
And we knew that this is not about the sales through that channel. It's about building that relationship with the consumer. So that's why we got involved with you, with DR, because we're trying to understand how we can reach people and create that direct relationship and understand them. And we knew years ago that there is a segment for this vacuum trimmer that we're doing. And the question always was we're not effectively communicating or finding these people and building a relationship. And we thought, we could go on Amazon, put it on Amazon, we could do all that route. But the idea is that direct response is a way to maybe get out there and find as many people as we can. Mm-hmm. To really build this category and really to understand those people and where they're at. So, and as you know, right now we're trying to get the phone to ring more.
Right.
Our conversion rate's off the chart.
Yeah.
It's doing very, very well. And so the question is what can we do to tweak it, to build that, to get that velocity going?
Yep.
And really it goes back to you can find people anywhere. And so the question is what's the message and how do we find them? So if we tweak the message right and we find the right places that they're at, we're going to build that relationship with success. Bottom line is, and I'm going to kind of go off on a tangent here about Wahl Clipper. So Greg Wahl is our CEO. Okay. It's Wahl family. Greg would like to see, and he's I think 67 or 68, and he'll be passing along to one of his sons or nephews at some point here real soon in the next couple of years. And their desire is to have this company around for the next several hundred years, not as a IPO or a corporation, but really as a family-owned company. And he said to a very large retailer about a year ago that came there, you probably can guess who they are, very large retailer. He said to them, he goes, I don't tell my people to focus on sales or profit. I tell them to focus on doing the right thing because the sales and profit will take care of themselves. And he really does believe that, and I really do believe that. Now, of course, I do get measured on sales, profit, and market share. And by the way, all three, because if you're only doing one of the two or two of the three, you're not really being effective. Mm-hmm. You're not being good at your job or doing the right thing for the company. And so, of course, I'm measured on that, as every marketing or salesperson will be measured. However, that's not why we're in business. And going back to direct response, the reason we're in direct response is we're trying to do the right thing, which is have that relationship with the consumer directly. That is our biggest competitive advantage. Yep. That is in better serving consumers ultimately helps us win in the long run. So that's why we're back into direct response, but in a very different way. And my thought is we are not going to walk away from direct response because it is an important part of building that communication. So let's talk about advertising. So we've done TV advertising for a decade. Right. And there is a component to that can build relationships, but it's not the same. Right. Because you're really not putting yourself out there. You're not connecting with people either through digital or through a phone call. And so direct response gives you that immediate feedback to understand where you're at and how things are going.
And when you think about that direct relationship, and it talks about profitability and things like that, the sooner you can build that vast list in your CRM and direct relationship, and as we know, we're in the forefronts of that. That is real sustainability. Yep. That's real profitability because you can continue to serve that customer with other Wahl products or other types of things. If once they're in your ecosphere, that's where the real relationship and that's where real profitability comes. Yeah. And that doesn't happen in 24 months. I mean, it takes a while. Yeah.
So one of my things I like to say, and people kind of look at me like, but I say that we only have two competitive advantages at Wahl. There's only two. It's learning faster and being more creative. And the only way you learn is to listen. And if you don't build that relationship and build up that point of contact, you can't learn. So my philosophy has always been, and right or wrong, I've had a pretty good track record at this. The key thing I always look at is not asking people what they want, but asking them what's wrong.
Yeah.
And
What do
so
they need?
yes,
Right?
yeah. Well, I always call it irritant resolution. What's your problem, and how can I fix it? Because there's something bothering you about everything you do in life.
Yeah.
You know, there's something you can always say, like this hotel room, this room is too cold, it's too hot, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And the idea is I want to help people. And so building the CRM is actually being programmed, actually not so much just to build a database of people, but it's actually to do learning, program learning, is to understand what we're doing wrong and what we're doing right. So we actually have review integration in, not only our own, but our competitors' review aggregation in, because you can do that. So now what I can see is I can look and see how people are reacting to us versus our competition. So if someone's doing something better than me, I want to know.
Right.
If something's worse than me, I want to know.
And that's an opportunity.
It's
Both of them are
It
opportunities.
is. It's both opportunities. So yes, we want that. We want to build up that database. But what we don't want to do is we don't want to be that person that's constantly emailing. Like I'm sure you get these. You suddenly sign up for something, and now they're bombarding you with emails.
Right.
That's not who we are. It's not who we want to be. What we really want to do is learn. We want to understand. You know, are you a person that wants to engage? Perfect example. So we have a tour.
Yep.
And we go to festivals, okay? And we go to large events and we cut people's hair and trim up their beards. And we do it to have that interaction. That's another part of this relationship. We've been doing that for over a decade now. We're in our 11th year, I think. And so thinking of all these things, the idea is to understand, how do people want to interact with us? Why would I spend money on TV advertising if I knew that that's not how they want to interact with me? Or why would I invest in doing something with baseball when the majority really want me to be invested in football? So the CRM is really to understand how do I best invest my monies to communicate with you, the consumer, and how do I have a relationship with you? And that's what CRM is going to do. It's a learning tool more than I'll call it a sales tool.
Yep. You want to build that relationship on tour, a one-on-one basis, right? You learn a lot of information from people. But direct response, performance response, what we're doing really is that on steroids, right? It's that at scale.
Yes.
Talk about how television and direct response has given you the ability to build that relationship at scale that you weren't able to do before.
Well, one of the things that we worked into the DR show, which I thought was really good, is we went to San Diego and we kind of mimicked our tour, is actually what we did, which was fantastic. Mm-hmm. And it was a chance to interact with people and watch the surprise in their face when we showed them something that existed that they didn't know existed. And I think that's a really key component of this entire DR idea, that you get to introduce to people things that they didn't know before that they can learn. And the other learning goes both ways. In the process of doing this, we learned a tremendous amount about us and about our product. And actually some of the things that have come back from producing DR and some of the things that we've learned since we've launched it, we're looking at, hey, we got some new product or some improvements that we can make to products based off that. So it is a tool. It's an absolute tool that gives us instant feedback. Mm-hmm. It tells us if we're hitting all cylinders correct, if the phones ring or they don't ring.
Right.
They're going to the site or they're not going to the site. They're giving feedback. They're calling back, customer service. Mm-hmm. You spot quality issues. You spot opportunities. You spot ideas. Just ideas that whether or not they come anything, it's not. It goes back to, I was talking about the two competitive advantages, learning faster than the competition and being more creative. Just because you get information, sometimes it doesn't have an A to B to Z result. It's you collect it, you let it kind of stew for a while, and then you find about 8 or 9 little points of information, and all of a sudden, poof.
Right.
And a wonderful teacher one time said to us, he was a presentation teacher, since retired, he had this great statement, and I've used it so many times since then, because this is brilliant. He says, anybody can collect the dots. Not everybody can connect the dots. And what DR brings us is a lot of dots. A lot of dots. And so it doesn't mean everyone is, X, Y, Z. It's collect them, talk about them, be creative, and then come up with either new merchandising ideas, new product ideas, product improvements, or how we can better serve. And that's what we're in the process right now of doing that. How can we better connect with them?
We're like, we have all these dots right now.
Yeah.
And then now we're trying to cipher them down to figure out what's the right dot connection that's going to click for us, right?
Yeah, because you know the categories exist. You know what's out there. You know there's people out there. We know this. It's been known for years. In fact, it's so funny, and you ran into this when you're producing it. we invented the vacuum trimmer back in 2001. And here we are, 17 years later, products have been in the market.
People are like, what?
Exactly. I never knew this existed. That's almost comes out of everybody's mouth.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, so now the opportunity is now that we're educating people, how do we find that right mix of people
Right.
so we can get the momentum we need? Amazon calls it the flywheel,
Yep.
right? That's their terminology for it. You get the flywheel going and everything starts going. And so I know, and I think you know, that we get that flywheel right,
Yep.
this thing is going to be absolutely huge.
And
And that's the key.
Yeah, and we've got one area that's doing pretty well, and now what can we learn there
Yep.
that we can migrate over here
Yep.
to get that flywheel going?
And that's what it's about. It's
Yeah.
really about learning, and if the more we learn, the more dots we collect, and the more we can get together and really have that group learning, and making sure that the adjustments are connected to that. Just because someone said that, does that mean that most people feel that way?
Right.
So we're going through that process now of trying to decipher what is meaningful information and what is something we fall in love with. And that is always a struggle when you do these things. And that's why it's a continuous process.
Yeah, I always say, you can't get romantic about an idea. You
Yeah.
just, you just
Yeah.
sometimes you got to cut off the bad girlfriend or boyfriend, right? And move on.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So that's what the process we're going through. And by the way, it's no different than any other part of our business.
Yeah.
And the only part that I'm just appreciative of DR is that I love to learn, and it's a big area I really don't have a lot of expertise.
Yeah.
And it kind of feels like, Amazon 5 years ago, I was just ignorant. I mean, I was ignorant, and it was just so much fun to learn stuff to the point where you now say things and people are looking, what is that? What's that? And it's sometimes simplistic to me now because I've learned it.
And you're
But then
deep into it,
if
yeah.
I went back 5 years ago, I probably wouldn't know these things either. But that's
For you
for me
now.
Amazon now, and I'm just trying to absorb and learn
Right.
from the experts
Yeah.
and understand and how I can integrate my knowledge of marketing into that to make it work for us.
So let's talk about Amazon, let's talk about retail, because I really believe, and this is one man's opinion, you and I have talked about this, is that, the retail world is not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere. It may be condensing, because I think we've over-retailed the world, right?
Yeah.
Great
Yeah.
thing, what Americans do, right? They overdo it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's over-retailed. Then you got Amazon, who's not messing around, right?
Yeah.
They're not messing around.
No.
They could tomorrow, if they wanted to, make a vacuum trimmer if they wanted to.
Oh yeah.
They could do that. So tell me how Wahl has decided that building that direct relationship consumer is so important, because you don't own this customer and you don't own this customer here, and they could just turn up one day and say, you know what, margins are going up,
Right.
and they could say, no, we're going to do this, and you're stuck, right?
Yep.
That's how it works.
So I had mentioned before that to my global management group, I had said that Amazon's biggest fear is a brand that can create a direct relationship with consumers.
Yep.
Because Amazon wants to own that relationship.
Yep.
And by the way, brick and mortar want to own that relationship as well. In fact,
They're just not good at it.
well, brick and mortar is actually, I think, to some extent, because it's a bid for survival.
Yeah.
I had seen a statistic a couple of years ago from a University of Wisconsin professor that mentioned that I think the United States has 5 times more retail square footage per person than Europe does.
I saw the same, yeah. I
So
saw the
you
same
know
thing, yeah.
that we're about 5 times too large right
Right.
there. So there's a lot of consolidation going on. There's a lot of companies going out of business, but they want to own that relationship, and they feel their opportunity is actually creating private label. And they don't even call it private label anymore. They call it
Okay.
own brand. Some
Right.
people call it, and it won't say generic, or won't say Walmart. It won't say Target. It has Archer Farms. It has whatever the
Whatever masquerade is on it, it's their brand.
yeah, and whether it's Walgreens, CVS, Target, Walmart, it's all the same.
Yeah.
And so I was actually just at Target, and I was actually surprised in the cosmetic area how much own brand product they have. And so they want to own that direct relationship. And of course, we're important partners to them, but it's not the same partnership we had a decade ago.
Yeah.
And because they're in a survival mode,
Yep.
just as everyone is. So our job as a branded company, as a manufacturer who has, we have 2,800 people that we support, around the world. And, I think we have 1,000 in Sterling, Illinois, in the factory that we we have responsibility for, that they have a job for as long as they want one.
Right.
And so we have to have that direct relationship. So Amazon wants a direct relationship, brick and mortar wants a direct relationship, and we want the direct relationship. So the unfortunate thing is we all have the same goal. And I always like to tell people it's not a zero-sum game. It's not a zero-sum game. That's how I keep telling people these days, because everybody thinks either I get it or you get it. And unfortunately right now with brick and mortar retail, because of what Amazon has done,
Right.
because there's so many closings, because earnings are harder and harder, even though we've had a nice economy here now, they know, or they think, that they have to own that themselves. And I really believe it doesn't have to be zero-sum. I think I can have a portion and you can have a portion. And we can actually coexist and work better together. But that's something that's going to take some time.
Right.
That's where the problems come. And again, that's why we're in direct response.
Because you're not waiting to find out what is going to happen. If it goes one way or another, at least I've done my part,
Yep.
my responsibility, my company, and my employees, and
Yep.
what I need to do. That if Amazon decides one day that they're going to be in the trimmer shaver
Yep.
business,
Yep.
you're not held. You're not screwed.
Right.
You know?
And here's an example of DR. So this is how it's a shared model.
Okay.
As I keep telling, we want to develop that direct relationship with consumers. So let's just take our current product as an example. Our job is to create the direct relationship, build up momentum on a product, and guess who benefits? Yes, we benefit, but guess who else benefits? We're absolutely taking that product to brick and mortar.
Yeah.
And that will quickly become a top-selling product for them because of the knowledge out there, the momentum of the product, the flywheel, if you
Yeah.
would. And by the way, we're also taking that product ultimately to Amazon. So everybody is going to benefit from the work we're doing developing that relationship. I would like retailers to see that, whether it's Amazon or brick and mortar, and say, okay, I know you're doing your best to make this a non-zero-sum game. Now what am I doing to make this a non-zero-sum game? And I think that's the key of having those honest dialogues to say, there are some retailers that absolutely get it. They lean into us. They know that we help their business, and so they want to help our business, and we work together. But I will say, just because of the way the retail world has been over the past 5 or 6 years, that's not the norm. That's the exception. And that's what we're trying to get to, is people that can give us the opportunities to demonstrate the value we bring to that relationship with the consumer.
Excellent. Very well said. Let's talk about when you guys started understanding that direct response, building a direct-to-consumer relationship was going to be an important part of Wahl moving forward. What is it that you were looking for in a partner, and what did we bring that gave you the confidence that we were the right partner for you?
Let me tell you a story.
Okay.
And this is going to kind of tell you why we selected your group. So about 10 years ago, 11 years ago, 12 years ago, we had an ad agency that when I came up on board with Wahl, I just see they didn't get us. They didn't understand us. And I'm not sure they understood the consumer or even cared. They cared about falling in love with their own creativity. And we talked already about that. A competitive advantage is being creative, more creative, but don't fall in love with your stuff because you got to test it. We looked for ad agencies. And I learned a very important lesson because we gave each of these ad agencies that we narrowed it down to a task. And one of them performed it exceptionally well. But in the back of my mind, I actually wrote in a little Post-it note, I said, best execution of the task, but was this the best they got, and did throw everything at it? And then the runner-up, that ultimately is now our ad agency, by the way, I wrote on there, one of the people there were rocks because they were really good at understanding consumer behavior. And I said, strategically incredibly sound, not as good execution of our creative plan. So we actually gave the business to the one agency, and within 2 years, we actually went to the other agency because what we learned is that it's not about short term. It's not about who can do this right, what I need right now. Who can be a long-term partner that can understand us, that's interested in understanding us, that can help us learn. But we've had this 10-year relationship with them because they want to engage and understand us and our consumer, and they're not afraid of being pushed and being told, this is not the right direction. They want to learn as much as we do. So we've integrated them into our planning meetings, our important part. I call them an extension of my marketing group.
Yeah.
So
Hence why we met, right?
Well, right. When we were looking at DRs, we called probably a dozen phone interviews, and then we narrowed it down, kind of just like we did an ad agency. We brought in, 3 groups this time, 3 groups twice. Brought them into Wahl, and then we brought them into our ad agency because they're an important part, and we wanted them to get their say. And the reason we went with you guys was 2 reasons. One is that we had a feeling that you're not in it for the short term. And I'm not saying that the other groups were in it just for the short term, but there was just something that felt like this is something where a long-term relationship could be developed, and that they could be an integral part of our marketing group. And the second reason is I think we didn't know exactly what we wanted, but I think you articulated the best what we thought we probably needed to do. Mm-hmm. And there is a difference between success in an infomercial and long-term success of a brand. And yes, we want to have the flywheel going.
Yep. But
the more important thing is developing the relationship and understanding long-term what the brand needs to be.
So what did we bring that was really important to this whole initiative for Wahl?
Well, I obviously am learning a lot. Every time I have a weekly status call or just the interactions we've had, I'm absorbing information. My product manager is absorbing information. Mm-hmm. Our job long-term is to understand how to do direct response, but I'm not sure we'll ever be at a point, like with our ad agency, we're learning social. We're so far ahead of our ad agency and Amazon. It's because that they don't do that day in and day out.
Right.
They can read articles and they can try to keep up to date, but we really have taken the reins on that because we're the ones doing the day-to-day work. We're never going to do day-to-day work on a lot of parts in advertising, and we're never going to be able to do the day-to-day work on DR. But we can learn enough to make each other better. Yep. And that's the relationship we have with HY. I'm hoping that's the relationship we have here. And it's just interesting because on a personal note, it's so funny. I see a lot of myself in you. Mm-hmm. And so when I meet someone like me, I have 2 quick reactions. I go, I feel comfort because I know that they pose some great benefits that I know I can feel comfortable in working with them. And then I think, oh my gosh, I can see all the problems that come up to it. And it was funny. It was funny because I see some of our personalities are a little bit similar in some ways too. And on some of our phone calls and stuff, I thought we're either gonna be really close friends or we're gonna be just butting heads, man. This guy. But you got a big heart, and that's a cool thing I love about that. You, Ken. But it gives me comfort, and that's the other part of this that was important. And by the way, the relationship will only last as long as you're personally involved because you bring a lot of credibility. And you got a great team, by the way. Yeah. But it just goes back to anything. Delegating off to the team is good. You want to do that, but there is a reason why you've built the business you've built. There is a reason why. Yeah. And even if you have a team of A players, they're not you. And I always like to say the smartest person in the room is the room. Yeah. And if someone important is missing from that room is just isn't as smart. Yeah. And so when you think of some of the decisions we make at our business, we try to have several of our leaders in the room with our people together, not because we're making the decisions, but because we add value. Right. And just as they add value to us, we add value to them. So that's why it's really important that we continue our relationship with you as a part of that.
It is fascinating to me to learn your business as much as it is for you to learn direct response. Yeah. In terms of the setup, because doing direct response and the setup of the business on the back end is a complicated thing. Talk about what we brought there, because I think anybody can have a camera and shoot something, but it's understanding the whole enterprise. Yeah. Right. So absolutely, for sure, there is some great knowledge there that helps. We had already established a relationship with a 3PL for Amazon reasons and for our e-commerce business. And they're really good programmers, but obviously we needed to have the ability to work with a company that could help us in that. So it is a complex issue. In fact, it's different than Amazon and different than e-commerce. So the beauty of it is our 3P
partner actually has learned through this. We've learned through this, and I'm hoping that you guys even learned a little bit through this process too. And I think ultimately having that ability to have people that have that, we call it end-to-end. We always talk about looking end-to-end. It starts with the consumer and ends with the consumer. There's a whole lot of stuff that happens in between, and you can't just think in something and like right here in this little section, because you lose sight of the bigger picture.
Right.
So the end-to-end is what really helped us. And I will tell you, I've actually learned more about distribution than I care to, but we appreciate all the wonderful things that happen. But just little things like this, like we had a big hiccup on credit card transactions.
Yeah.
And having someone to at least talk to and someone that can help is always an ability, because when it's only internal people talking, we've never experienced it before.
Right.
We can reach out.
So you don't know what you don't know.
Bingo.
Which is a problem.
Bingo. And that's the great value you bring, because we know how that happens.
Yeah.
And so that's the resource, because you guys are seasoned. You know the business. You know the end-to-end of direct response. We don't know the end-to-end of direct response. You're helping us learn that. And of script to screen that has M2 that helps with the fulfillment, with kind of passing knowledge on. And then we've got our 3P partner, and then we've got our internal group, and then we've got actually partners on the digital side and partners on the e-commerce side. All of them working together. And really, honestly, I'm glad M2 is there, because it's hard enough to work with as many vendors as we work with today in our areas of things we do.
To add another layer on top.
And that's right. So it's nice to send Rachel an email saying, hey, we have a problem here, and let her take care of that rather than me. It's an extension of the marketing group. I say to myself, I don't have time to do it. I don't have anybody on my team. And this goes back to what you were talking about. We want to learn, but I've also recognized we don't have the horses or the resources to do all the things we want to do. So we're always going to need partners that are going to be the extension of our marketing group, that are going to do things. Now, that doesn't mean we're not going to stop learning,
right.
But there's got to be a day-to-day management of it. And that's where you guys really have thrived.
I can't tell you how good that makes me feel, that you feel confident that we're an extension of your marketing team in the direct response area, because that's what we want to do. That's always been our goal. Yeah. And to push forward, and even the things that we've been talking about, what's next, and looking out in the future, and what are we going to be doing together in a direct consumer relationship when it comes to social, when it comes to voice, when it comes to these types of things, because these technologies are coming. It's how we embrace them and how we have them work together with us within this whole ecosystem is really the key. So that's what excites me about that. And
well, I think that's where we can have this kind of creative relationship between our ad agency and you guys, because there's opportunities. I still feel there's opportunities to do what I call micro DR campaigns on YouTube and on social.
Totally.
I really believe in that. I've seen great success, especially in the mattress companies and some other companies in the digital space. And I believe there's these opportunities for these micro campaigns where we can spit out a few of them continuously, and lightning can strike. Yeah. And that's where things get really exciting. And what that means is that we've connected with someone, and then we get to learn why, and then we get to develop those relationships. And that's the fun part of this job. The fun part is having that success where you can connect with people, and you can have success, and you can understand what did we do that was right? How did we serve that customer better? Because that helps us in the future with everything. We get learnings from DR, we apply to Amazon, we apply to brick and mortar, we apply to our marketing efforts, our advertising efforts, and likewise, we can take some of the learnings that we've got and we can apply them back to DR. And it's this wonderful holistic relationship that we can help grow.
So Steve, from a vice president of marketing or a CMO position, a C-level suite, right? What would you say to people who are in that position with brands, whether they're making a product, whether it's a service or a subscription or something like that? What would you say to them that they should be looking into direct response that could potentially help them an area that they're maybe not maximizing?
Oh, I would just say if someone's not doing direct response in one form or another, they're not being effective in their position. I mean, just let's be honest. If you are not today either already in or looking to be on Amazon's marketplace, which is a direct-to-consumer model, the marketplace is, you're way behind if you're in a consumer packaged good. And what other people don't understand is all that is just taking something that's been around forever, in infomercials and mail order and door-to-door sales, and applying to today. And to me, direct response is not a part of a marketing mix, it is integrated into the marketing mix. And it's very different because, for example, TV, you can do advertising, right?
Yep.
Or you can do direct response advertising. So regular advertising is, hey, I got a really cool brand, I'll put some cool music to it, I'll make it emotional, and then hopefully people remember me at retail. I think from a brand building standpoint, there is some opportunity there, but to me it's more defensive in nature. It's defensive in the fact that you're trying to keep yourself relevant to consumers. I've always seen advertising as defensive, and I've seen, call it guerrilla marketing, as offensive. DR falls into the guerrilla campaign. It's the idea of you're reaching out. It's like PR, it's like mobile tours, it's like being in the marketplace on Amazon, it's door-to-door sales, it's all the things that are offensive, meaning in going towards
right.
instead of reacting.
And it's controlling your message.
And okay, let's talk about
Right.
that, because here's something where I disagree with pundits on, and we can have a discussion on this if you'd like,
Okay.
or not. But people always say, oh, the internet's, we've lost our ability to control our message. And I'm like, you guys are crazy. You have not. You have not. Yes, more people can have a say and they can bash you on social media and they give you bad reviews, but you own that.
Yeah.
You own that.
It's your responsibility.
Bingo. That's exactly what I mean. You own it. So you need to be able to effectively, first of all, if you have to say you're authentic, you're not authentic. But you need to go out there authentically and embrace these people and say, look, I'm doing the best I can. Okay? And sometimes you have to be direct with people.
Yeah.
I remember I get a story. There was a Amazon review and just put pictures and bashed us relentlessly because I went to use the clipper and it didn't work. And I, as a vice president, you don't think I would be responding to Amazon reviews, but I was bothered by it because he didn't read the instructions or the quick start guide or even look at a YouTube video or knew anything how to use our appliance. There is an opportunity. We pre-tune every clipper that goes out, but clippers, vibrator clippers, need to be tuned. Okay, we pre-tune everything, but there is a chance when something is juggled, when it gets vibrated and juggled in the UPS or FedEx or USPS truck or at Amazon gets juggled, it can go out of tune. So we have a little screw slot on the side of every one of our clippers, and you can take the little brush we've got, it's got a flathead screw at the end, and you just churn it till it chatters, and you churn it back until it hums, and it'll work. Guarantee it's going to work, because I knew exactly what was wrong as soon as he started, talking about this in a negative way. So I responded, and I tried to do it in a polite but very direct manner. I couldn't stop that person from doing that, but I own that.
Yeah.
And if I'm not out there, and this again goes back to CRM, CRM is going to help us
Right.
actually identify these very quickly and respond to them almost in real time. That's the key that we're building into our CRM, not just to collect data.
Right.
It's to be able to use it as a tool, a learning tool, and a response tool. So the idea here is that if you're not integrating direct response into it, you're losing control of what everybody's saying we've already lost control of. You're losing control. So it is a control tool of your own. You can't control what other people do, but you control what you do.
Right.
And that's what DR is a tool of. Just like guerrilla marketing, just like all the other things that we use on our tour, we control our messaging.
And when I talk about that, it's that front-facing message
Yep.
where people see it on television, they see it on social, see
Yep.
it on digital, and we go, okay, here's the problem we solve.
Yep.
Here's how we solve it uniquely. Here's our validation.
Right.
Here's our proof. Here's our authenticity. We've made that message exactly who we are as a company, and take it for what we are. But
Right.
that's what we are, and we're going to serve you.
We put Phil Wahl, fourth generation, into our DR spot there. And Phil has absolutely no experience in terms of acting or being in front of a camera. And one can look at it like an ad agency would and say, boy, that's not smooth, but that's who we are.
Yeah.
And that's,
And it worked.
you don't fake authenticity, you can't fake it. And the idea is we know from the research we just did that people actually liked Phil.
Yeah.
They liked the fact that he actually is being who he is and not being smooth pitchman guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's who we are. And again, that goes back to controlling your message. You have an opportunity to show who you really are, and when you can show who you really are and people understand why we do what we do,
Yeah.
that builds relationships.
Yep.
Because like I said, Greg Wahl is not in the business of focusing on sales and profit and market share. He's in the business of doing the right thing and letting those take care of itself.
And I think one of the the big takeaways from the latest research that we did was we need to get into a little bit more of why we do what we do.
Yes.
And when we can convey that and they understand that, the value proposition that we're putting in front of them is such an easier, I'm going to use the word sell, but it is.
Right.
It's an easier sell when they go, oh, these guys, there is a reason for all of this.
Yeah, I mean, going into a purchase, obviously people have a need for something.
Right.
We fulfill something like, oh, I don't have to clean up this mess anymore with this vacuum trimmer. This is really cool.
Right.
My wife is going to be happier.
Yep.
I'm going to have less work to do. It's more convenient for me, and it's going to do the job really well because it's got these great blades. That's all good. Then the next layer that always is who am I doing business with? That's always the next thought out of people's, thought that they have when they, even retail, no matter where they're at. And so the idea is, who is Wahl, and what does Wahl mean?
Yep.
And the idea is that they know that they're supporting people who have jobs in the United States, manufacturing jobs in the United States. That's number one. Number two is they know it's a family-owned company that is not some Wall Street conglomerate and some publicly traded company with some CEOs just trying to make next quarter to make a big golden parachute for himself so he can retire at 55. We know we're not that. We have a 67-year-old CEO that knows that he'll be giving it to the next generation, but he's hoping that it goes for generations. So as we build up that, why would you want to buy from us, along with the quality we can give you, that's really when the relationship builds to that next level where people say, I love your company so much that I may wear your apparel. I mean, just to go on the professional side for a second, there are professional barbers that have tattoos of Wahl on them, because that's how much Wahl means to them as a tool that makes their livelihood.
Yeah.
Consumers are a little different. They're not as enthusiastic, but they can say, I'm supporting a company that supports American workers. I'm supporting a company that's supporting wounded warriors. I'm a company that supported, the things that they do and what they stand for, the principles they stand for. Respect the individual, servicing the customer, leading with humility, thinking end to end and making sure that we will take care of people, and that if they have a quality issue, we will absolutely take care of it. That's the reason why, and this is what DR can do for you.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to do that without people knowing, unless they came and visited us, right? Or they experience us. DR is a way to have a little microcosm of that happen. And I think we did an effective job on that end, and I think we could actually build it up a little bit more on the next version.
And that's where that value proposition of making, at the end of the day, we got to make some sales, but that where brand comes in and it melds together and like, I want to do business with this company because they make a great product and I like what they stand for.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting on that note. It just popped into my head. A lot of people are entrepreneurs and they go out there and they try to make a lot of money and then they try to do like good work after they're rich. We take a very different approach. We try to do the right things all along the way. So we may never actually end up doing as much in a big way at one point. But if you count up all the things we do along the way, that's where the benefit to society happens. And I think that doing the right thing and having that, and so the flywheel has to happen at some point because you can't chase good money after bad.
Right.
But that doesn't mean we're ever going to not be who we are in order to achieve that. We're not going to sell ourselves out. And that's where another reason why we trusted in your organization, because we said, we're not here just to get a sale. And there's people out there, I think we both know, there's people out there do a lot of crazy things.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to name anybody in particular, but there are some crazy things. But that's not who we are. And so we will only succeed if it fits within our principles.
One of the things I remember that you said specifically, and I don't know if it was a conversation you had with Greg or with you specifically, but you said very early on, it says, doing the right thing is always the right thing.
Yeah.
And it's been throughout the whole relationship. So I remember that specifically because it is.
No, it is. And look, I make a lot of mistakes. We all make a lot of mistakes because we're human.
Yeah.
And the question is are you going to, focus on the mistakes, or are you going to focus on the good you can do? So every time I make a mistake, I always say two things. I say, I have to say I'm sorry, or I have to make amends. But the second thing I have to do is now I have to go out and do something good, because I have to show myself that, I fell. Now I'm going to go back and do something good. As a manager, you manage people, I manage people. I make mistakes all the time. We can have a bad day. You can be under a lot of stress. And I always say to myself, I look, at the end of the day, all I want people to do is to know that I care about them, I love them, and that I want the best for them. And I'm trying to do the best I can. And doing the right thing is always something I focus on. And I think that's a good recipe for life, because, yeah, you can have a lot of material success.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, we talked about this earlier before we got on camera.
Yeah.
You don't want any regrets.
Yeah.
So it's easy to get to the top by backstabbing and by being a tyrant. But it's a whole lot better and on your conscience when you can do it in a way where you're creating American jobs, you're supporting people, you're telling people that you are, fallible and you make a lot of mistakes,
Yep.
and that the room is the smartest person, not yourself. These are the things that you do, and I think the relationship we have of continuing to do the right thing rather than the fast and expedited thing is what's going to give us an opportunity to work for a long, long time.
Don't be the best on the team, be the best for your team.
Oh, there you go. Servant leadership all
Yeah,
the way.
yeah.
That's what it is, yeah.
So the last question I have for you is, where do you see direct response, or where do you see how direct response, how performance response fits into the marketing mix of Wahl, and what do you see for the future?
Yeah. The biggest question I have in my mind is how we have Script to Screen and Hoffman York and Wahl Clipper all work together and not have a zero-sum game.
Okay.
Because direct response really, to me, is the future of everything we do. So I consider my Amazon FBA and my CRM strategy all direct response. I consider doing all my advertising really in a more direct response manner. I consider my tour really being more direct response. So I think our challenge, your challenge, my challenge, and Hoffman York challenge is to get together and talk about how we all work together to mutually benefit. Because honestly, the long view here is not you're my infomercial company,
Right.
and you're my advertising agency. The goal here is that we're all in the business to do one thing: create relationships with consumers, to build our flywheel so we can continue to serve people in the way that they want us to serve them. And like I mentioned, we can't do that unless we're all working together for the same goal. If we're all segmenting everybody and putting people in boxes, it's not going to work. So that the future is everything I do is going to be direct response. I'll just give you a quick example. Here's direct response within brick and mortar. So we came up with an idea 2 years ago to basically, we know touch and learns, like Target has touch and learns in there, that they increase sales between 20 and 30%. We know that. So we went out and created our own miniature touch and learn for our high-end product and put it in all Walmart stores. That's direct response in a way, because here's what it is.
Yeah.
You walk into a store, you see a bunch of boxes, and all of a sudden there's this product sitting off the shelf that's all by itself. You pick it up, you're having a direct interaction with the product rather than just looking at a bunch of boxes. That's actually a direct response. I'm actually trying to be there in the store representing myself in a creative way to get people like me. Now, when everybody does it, all of a sudden it doesn't feel direct response.
Right.
But when I do something that's to the consumer, I'm reaching out to them and they're seeing me, that is a relationship. Now, I would love it for the fact that they could go on their cell phone now and interact with the product with a QR code or with the URL and have some more direct response, or chat with us on site. This is how all direct response all comes together. And that's why we're going to have to continue to work together to figure out this giant holistic puzzle that's a relationship with consumers and communicating with them, how we integrate throughout from end to end the opportunity to have that connection. It's a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
It's no longer just infomercial business or pop a video on YouTube and have people call or go to a website or microsite. It's the entire marketing mix needs to have that relationship and that opportunity for relationship at every point along. You know, we talk about
journey.
Unique selling proposition through the entire customer journey, the opportunity for them to engage with how they want, when they want, you know, wherever they're at with us. That's direct response. That's two-way. So that's why it's going to be so important.